And then what did you make of Sophie Cunningham's flagrant foul on JC towards the end?
It was a flagrant foul.
Do you think it's like defending Caitlin or defending the team, or how do you view just how it all?
I view it as a flagrant foul.
I'll ask about the game too.
Yeah, well, I mean, you guys came for basketball.
Yeah,
Let's talk about basketball.
Yeah.
Come on now.
What do you think of just how you all were able to pull away in the second half, Caitlin, in particular?
We're going to the Commissioner Cup Championship.
Let's
That's
go!
pretty exciting. Y'all want to talk about that? Let's talk about that.
The WNBA doesn't deserve Caitlin Clark. Let's be brutally honest about this. They've got the most transcendent talent women's basketball has ever seen. A player who single-handedly elevated their entire league from obscurity to mainstream relevance. And how do they repay her? By allowing their referees to turn a blind eye while opposing players treat her like a punching bag, game after game, season after season.
All right, enough is enough. You know, at some point, the line gets crossed too often where something needs to be done and things need to be corrected. And that is certainly the case with the way things around Caitlin Clark are officiated. This is a constant problem now. You know, it is something that since the beginning, I've kind of like backed off on, because physical play is a part of sports. You know, going after a superstar and trying to rough them up a little bit to get in their head is a part of sports. But when it crosses the line, the referees need to do their jobs. They need to do their jobs, blow the whistle, and officiate properly.
And when Caitlin finally had enough in that press conference after Sophie Cunningham got ejected for doing what the refs refused to do, actually protect the league's biggest star, her response was not just deserved, it was long overdue.
I don't understand why this is all happening to Caitlin Clark, who's brought so much attention to the league, frankly, revenue and viewership numbers. She single-handedly has made the broadcast rights go up, and I'm not saying she's the only one who did it. Yes, all of the women that came before her matter too, but the WNBA is doing better because Caitlin Clark is in it now. It is one of the reasons they're doing better, and a rising tide lifts all boats. Everybody in the WNBA is better off.
Here's what really happened that night against the Connecticut Sun, and why it represents everything wrong with how the WNBA has handled Caitlin Clark. JC Sheldon poked Clark in the eye during the third quarter, and instead of the refs stepping in to control the escalating situation, they let Marina Mabry blindside Clark and knock her to the ground. The officials, they gave out some meaningless technical fouls and called it a day.
Courtney, if somebody ever tackles you like that,
nobody would ever tackle me like that. They would play with Bridget like that, and then we would have to like take it up there.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
But I'm just saying that.
I ain't nobody would ever play with me like
if that ever happened, you better crash out behind me, because I'm crashing out behind you. We can share the same jail cell. Yeah, bro.
Oh my gosh, bro. Our team would crash, bro, because they would play with somebody that's like not even like.
But Sophie Cunningham wasn't having it. She watched her teammate get targeted, she watched the refs fail to do their job, and she decided enough was enough. With less than a minute left in the game, Cunningham wrapped up Sheldon on a fast break and took her to the ground. A clear message that if the WNBA won't protect Caitlin Clark, her teammates will. The result? Cunningham got ejected.
But tonight, she is one of the best teammates in the world. After the entire league has been after Caitlin Clark for so long, and after tonight getting poked in the eye and body shoved by the Connecticut Sun, Sophie Cunningham had finally had enough and took it into her own hands.
Sheldon comes up with the steal. Sheldon goes coast to coast. And here we got another break this here as JC Sheldon.
The player who finally stood up for the league's biggest star got kicked out of the game for doing what should have been unnecessary in the first place. Are we serious right now? Let's talk about the absurdity of this situation. Caitlin Clark has literally transformed the WNBA. She's brought millions of new fans to women's basketball, elevated television ratings to unprecedented levels, and made the league more relevant than it's ever been in its 27-year history. And how does the WNBA repay this generational talent who's printing money for their organization?
The WNBA is not a vertical league. Their players can't jump over each other to score like the NBA. It's a horizontal chippy league. And you didn't watch the NBA for the last 10 to 12 years. It has always been physical and always been chippy. You get into a lot of collisions because they don't, there's no Ja Morant here. There's no Ant Edwards. They don't jump over. It's a horizontal physical league. And in Caitlin Clark now is like kerosene to the physicality flame. So you have physicality in this league, and now you get this flashy player, and they don't know how to officiate her, they don't know how to defend her.
By allowing veteran players to rough her up with impunity, by letting referees swallow their whistles when she gets cheap-shotted, by creating an environment where Clark has been on the receiving end of 17% of all flagrant fouls committed in the league, a statistic so ridiculous it borders on criminal negligence by the officials. Who would have thought that elevating an entire professional sports league would result in being disrespected for it? But that's exactly what's been happening to Clark since she entered the WNBA. She's breaking records left and right, filling arenas that would otherwise be half empty, and getting repaid with a target on her back that the refs seem determined to ignore.
What's going on with the chippiness there, and what explanation were you given for the tech that you got?
I'll take the official questions. There wasn't an explanation for the tech that she got. You know, I think it was pretty obvious that stuff was brewing, right? When the officials don't get control of the ball game, when they allow that stuff to happen, and it's been happening all season long. All season long. It's not just this game. It's been happening all season long. This is what happens, right? This is what happens. You've got competitive women who are the best in the world at what they do, right? And when you allow them to play physical and you allow these things to happen, they're going to compete. And they're going to have their teammates' backs. It's exactly what you expect, right, out of fierce competition. So I started talking to the officials in the first quarter, and we knew this was going to happen. You could tell it was going to happen. So they got to get control of it. They got to be better. They got to be better.
If you are enjoying, please subscribe. Finally, Caitlin Clark has a teammate who won't just stand there and watch her get brutalized. Sophie Cunningham came to Indiana from Phoenix in a 4-team trade, and she's quickly established herself as Clark's unofficial bodyguard and official enforcer, and the fans love her for it. Before that game against Connecticut, Cunningham had fewer than 400,000 followers on TikTok. Within days of standing up for Clark, she skyrocketed to over 1.2 million followers. Her Instagram exploded with more than 300,000 new followers. Her jersey sales went through the roof. Why? Because fans finally saw someone willing to have Caitlin Clark's back. This is what having your teammates' back actually means. Sophie Cunningham looked at the situation, saw that the officials were failing in their most basic responsibility, player safety, and decided to step in herself.
Sophie Cunningham continues to be the WNBA's shining new star. She's Caitlin Clark's sidekick at this point. Of course, Sophie Cunningham, man, what a meteoric rise. All it took was a little bit of rough justice on the court, sticking up for Caitlin Clark after she was poked in the eye by J.C. Sheldon of the Connecticut Sun and then pushed to the ground by the Sun's Marina Mabry. Everybody got on board, and it was Sophie Cunningham mania happening around the country.
Let's not dance around this issue. WNBA referees have been an absolute disaster when it comes to protecting Caitlin Clark. The pattern is so obvious that even casual observers can see it. Opposing players know they can get away with cheap shots on Clark because the refs consistently look the other way. The Connecticut Sun game was just the latest example. Sheldon pokes Clark in the eye, Mabry blindsides her and knocks her down. And what happens? A few meaningless technical fouls while the real aggressors stay in the game. Meanwhile, when Sophie Cunningham finally retaliates to send a message, she gets ejected immediately. The double standard is staggering. Clark gets called for technical fouls for showing the slightest emotion after getting hammered, but players who commit actual flagrant fouls against her face minimal consequences. It's like the officials are operating under completely different rule books depending on who's involved.
The officiating in this league makes the NFL officials look good. That is crazy that entire sentence just rolled out of my mouth. Because the NFL officials are so bad that a lot of people think the game is rigged or scripted. By the way, I've seen that about the WNBA as of late too. Like, are the officials trying to navigate games in certain directions? We got to remember, there's things like prop betting, and can we keep somebody? Hey, I put $2,000 over on Caitlin Clark not being able to score 25 points tonight. The payoff on that is $10,000.
When the media tried to focus on the altercations and the ejections in the post-game press conference, Caitlin Clark had finally had enough. Her response, "You guys came for basketball. Let's talk about basketball. Come on now. We're heading to the Commissioner's Cup Championship. That's pretty exciting. Y'all want to talk about that? Let's talk about that," was the perfect encapsulation of someone who's tired of the circus surrounding her. Think about what she's dealing with. She drops 20 points, 6 assists, and 4 three-pointers in a dominant win that sends her team to the Commissioner's Cup final. And all the media wants to discuss is the drama and the cheap shots she endured. She's trying to celebrate basketball excellence, and everyone else is fixated on the fact that she needs a bodyguard to play her sport safely. Her frustration was palpable, and it was completely justified. This is a player who's revolutionized women's basketball, and she can't even have a post-game interview focused on her actual basketball performance because the league's officiating is so incompetent that every game turns into a referendum on player safety.
Well, that's about the game too.
Yeah, well, I mean, you guys came for basketball.
Yeah,
Let's
no,
talk
seriously.
about basketball.
Yeah.
Come on now.
What do you think of just how you all were able to pull in the second half, Caitlin, in
We're
particular?
going to the Commissioner Cup Championship.
Let's
That's pretty exciting. Y'all want to talk about that? Let's talk about that.
Here's the reality that the WNBA leadership needs to confront. They have been gifted the most marketable, talented, and transformative player in the history of women's professional basketball, and they're squandering it with their incompetence. Clark's rookie season was marred by constant targeting from veteran players, and instead of addressing it, the league essentially enabled it. The statistics don't lie. When one player is absorbing 17% of all flagrant fouls in a league, that's not coincidence. That's systematic targeting. And when the officials consistently fail to address it appropriately, that becomes institutional negligence. Sophie Cunningham's actions against Connecticut weren't reckless or unprofessional. They were necessary. She did what the referees have failed to do for 2 years. She sent a clear message that targeting Caitlin Clark will have consequences. The fact that she got ejected for it while the original aggressors faced minimal punishment perfectly illustrates everything wrong with how this league operates.
Deserves to have people kind of go at her because she's a trash talker. Okay, if that is the logic. But the media are now saying Caitlin Clark brings everything on herself. And by the way, Caitlin Clark, if you want to say JC Sheldon getting in her face and everything until the eye gouge, nobody brings eye gouges on themselves. This is the same as, she brings it on herself with the push-off. Just call the hand check and the push-off doesn't happen. Do we not understand the sport of basketball?
The explosion in Sophie Cunningham's popularity tells you everything you need to know about how fans view this situation. She gained approximately 700,000 TikTok followers and over 244,000 Instagram followers in just 3 days following her ejection. Her jersey sales skyrocketed. Social media was flooded with support for her actions. Why? Because fans recognize authenticity when they see it. They see a player who's willing to sacrifice her own standing, risking ejection fines and potential suspension to protect her teammate. They see someone who understands that loyalty matters more than individual statistics or staying out of trouble. The fact that Cunningham's popularity exploded while the referees and league officials faced widespread criticism should tell the WNBA everything they need to know about who the fans support in this situation. They're not cheering for dirty play or unnecessary violence. They're cheering for someone finally having Caitlin Clark's back.
7K to more than 800K TikTok followers. When I tell you, man, TikTok truly do be showing love, man. TikTok truly do be showing love. But when I say, hey, Sophie, look, I wasn't familiar with your game, especially that little savviness, that tenacity that you got. But shawty, I'm a fan.
What makes Sophie Cunningham so perfect for this role is her absolute refusal to apologize or back down. After the ejection, she posted a photo of herself shrugging on social media, a clear message that she'd do it again in a heartbeat. When asked about the incident days later, she doubled down on her position that the referees are to blame for allowing the situation to escalate. At the end of the day, I'm going to protect my teammates, she said. That's what I do. And I'm a team player, no regrets, no apologies, just a clear statement of intent that she'll continue to have Clark's back regardless of the consequences. This is exactly what Caitlin Clark needed. A teammate who won't just watch her get targeted and do nothing about it. For too long, Clark has had to absorb cheap shots while her teammates stood by passively. Now she has someone who's willing to step in and send a message, consequences be damned.
Yeah, it was just part of the game. I think the refs had a lot to do with that. It was a build-up for a couple of years now of them just not protecting, the star player of the WNBA. And so at the end of the day, I'm going to protect my teammates. That's what I do.
The WNBA is at a crossroads. They can continue to allow their referees to ignore the systematic targeting of their biggest star, or they can finally step up and provide the protection that Caitlin Clark deserves. The Sophie Cunningham situation has forced this issue into the spotlight in a way that can't be ignored. The league's response will tell us everything we need to know about their priorities. Do they value the player who's transforming their sport? Or are they more concerned with protecting veteran players who seem determined to bully the new face of women's basketball? Based on their track record, fans have every reason to be skeptical. This is the same league that allowed Clark to absorb a disproportionate number of flagrant fouls throughout her rookie season while doing virtually nothing to address it. The same league whose officials continue to call technical fouls on Clark for showing emotion while letting opposing players commit actual flagrant acts with minimal consequences.
Stop playing with this girl. And I'm telling you, the only reason Caitlin Clark have statues in the WNBA right now because she's white. It was dominated by black women in a black league that they want to mirror the NBA. But unfortunately, them white girls, they got an extra, they got an extra 3-point finger or something. Because this girl has done 565 games. She only played 45 games and she's one away from tying the WNBA record. WNBA record. This is her second season. And you put the numbers together, that's like 10 seasons. That girl did it in 10 seasons. That means she had won a season. Caitlin Clark is... when Caitlin Clark gets to 10 seasons, she's going to have 100 of these.
As Caitlin Clark fans, we should all be grateful that Sophie Cunningham exists. She's the teammate every superstar needs. Someone who's willing to fight their battles, take the technical fouls, absorb the ejections, and send the message that their star player won't be disrespected without consequences. Cunningham has embraced the enforcer role completely, and she's doing it with style. Her social media presence has exploded not just because of the incident itself, but because of how she's handled the aftermath. She's unapologetic, confident, and completely committed to protecting her teammate. She has changed our game in the best possible way, Cunningham said about Clark in an earlier interview. Clark, I want her to go do her thing, and anything she needs from me, I'm going to be here. I stick up for my teammates. I stick up for myself. Those words prove prophetic. When the moment came, Cunningham was exactly where she said she'd be, standing up for her teammate when no one else would.
She has changed our game in the best possible way in every way. And so just to be alongside of her and maybe relieve the pressure, being able to shoot and spread the court for her to go do her thing. She's still young, and I think that I've been taken under, Diana took me under her wing, and I've learned a lot from her, and now I hope to kind of do the same for Caitlin if she wants it. I just think the relationship piece is huge, and when you're trying to do something great, it takes everybody, and so I want her to go do her thing, and anything she needs from me, I'm going to be here. But again, I think that just the competitor that I am, I'm fierce, I'm sassy, I stick up for my teammates, I stick up for myself.
The WNBA doesn't deserve Caitlin Clark, but thankfully, Caitlin Clark now has Sophie Cunningham. While the league continues to fail in its basic responsibility to protect its most valuable player, at least Clark knows she has a teammate who won't let her stand alone against the targeting and cheap shots. Sophie Cunningham won't go down without a fight, and she will not stop defending Caitlin Clark. That's exactly why we love her, and that's exactly what the WNBA's biggest star has been missing for far too long. The league may not have her back, but her teammate absolutely does. And honestly, that might be enough. Because when you have someone like Sophie Cunningham in your corner, someone willing to risk everything to protect you, you don't need the approval or protection of an organization that's proven it doesn't deserve you anyway. The WNBA can keep failing Caitlin Clark, but Sophie Cunningham sure won't.